You're listening to the Life Like You Mean It podcast, episode number 14. If you're in business for yourself, then no doubt you know how empowering it is to be your own boss. Set your own schedule. Have the freedom to work when you want, for how long you want, right? The truth is, most entrepreneurs work so hard, especially in the first couple years, that the main reasons they went into business for themselves, time and financial freedom, are moot. Today we're talking about the steps you can take within yourself and your business to create an atmosphere of success. My guest today, Rob Moore, is a self-made multi-millionaire, sought-after public speaker, author, co-founder of Progressive Property, the UK's leading property training company, and Progressive Success. He is also the host of the wildly successful podcast, The Disruptive Entrepreneur, and now the Money Podcast. There's no doubt that Rob knows what it's like to be successful, but we want tips from someone who's been in the trenches, so to speak. Someone who knows what it's like to not be successful, just starting out, and looking for those golden nuggets of advice that could change everything. Well, Rob Moore is our guy. You see, when he was just about to turn 27, he was a whopping $50,000 in debt, working out of his father's pub. But a serious health scare for his dad changed Rob's life forever. Something clicked inside him, making him realize that he wanted more. He wanted to live to his full potential. What happened next turned Rob from a struggling artist with no prospects into a self-made multi-millionaire in just 4 short years. And now Rob is here to share all his amazing tips for the rest of us, to help us grow into our full potential, personally and professionally. Rob isn't holding anything back in this episode, talking about his journey from rags to riches, his dad's health, and of course his top 8 tips to get your business where you want and need it to be. He's telling it like it is, being the disruptive entrepreneur that he is now famous for. The feel of this episode is slightly different from the rest, as while I was interviewing Rob for this podcast, I was live on his Facebook page for his. I'm telling you, this episode is a special one. If you're ready to get off the struggle train and step into your own, then this episode is for you. So, let's dive right in and let you meet my friend, Rob.
You're listening to the Life Like You Mean It podcast, where we firmly believe that you, and only you, have the power to make the changes you seek in your life. Survivor of 10 years of child abuse, Lisa Sabaniak, will help you to empower yourself to overcome your limitations in whatever form they take, to build the life you truly deserve. It's time to hear from fellow experts who know firsthand what building a successful and satisfying life because of our past experiences is like, and exactly what it takes to do it. If you're ready, willing and able to get honest with yourself, roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty with the hard work that lasting change takes, you're in the right place. Here's your host, NLP practitioner, speaker, Reiki master, author, and chipaholic, Lisa Sabaniak.
Today's episode is dedicated to daily greatness, offering the best planners I've ever seen or used to help you change your habits and hold yourself accountable to your goals. After offering their original planner, they've branched out to now offer the most incredible planners for parents, wellness, yoga, business, and success. I started with the business planner and was, and still am, blown away. I've simply never seen anything like this. Everyone knows that changing or making new habits takes perseverance, and that's where a lot of us go wrong. We have a great goal and even a plan to reach the goal, but we don't hold ourselves to implementing the plan for more than a few days or weeks at most. That's where this planner comes in. You see, daily greatness understands that the way you start your day determines how you spend your day. And of course, the way you spend your day determines your future. The intuitive flow of the daily greatness concept gives you a foundation and a structure to your days that support you in achieving your goals. That's right, not only are you setting goals with these planners, but you are following up on those goals, changing your disempowering habits to empowering ones, acknowledging your strengths, challenging your fears, and so much more. For more information about these awesome planners, go to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/planners. Again, that's lifelikeyoumeanit.com/planners. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm just so excited about this. The first thing that I want to ask you is this whole concept of disruptive entrepreneur. What does that mean to you?
Okay, so for me, being disruptive in entrepreneurship means to solve meaningful problems. It means to look at your market and your client base in a way that your competitors haven't thought of yet. It means to add value where your competitors haven't yet. It means to always challenge yourself to be a better entrepreneur, a better provider of products and services. And to break your comfort zones and patterns which no longer serve you, and to always look to improve and create a better offering. And the reason I say that quite specifically is because I think a lot of people think being disruptive is, being aggressive or going hard at a tired industry, or trying to really shake up a market. And whilst they are also true, I think you can be disruptive in any market, in any business, without having to break everything or change the world or completely reinvent the marketplace.
Yeah, I love it. I totally agree. And I love this idea of comfort zones because I work with that a lot with the work that I do because I'm also an NLP practitioner. And so that is where most of the people are really stuck with this whole idea of where their comfort zone is. And then every time that they go to try to step outside of that, even just a little bit, they are really, some people really panic at that kind of point. So what kind of tips do you give to people then to try to break out of their comfort zone?
Okay, so I think there's this myth that you have to get like dramatically uncomfortable. Because I think if you take any human being, something that's way out of their comfort zone, obviously it's going to be hard. And there's only probably the real adrenaline junkies in any space that would go to that level. So I think progressive discomfort is smarter because one, you're not going to make a massive mistake if you slightly get out of your comfort zone. So it's not as big a risk. So for example, let's say you're a bit worried about putting yourself out there on social media. Do a 1-minute video or write an article. And then once you've got a bit more comfortable with a 1-minute video, do a 2-minute one, then a 5-minute one, then do a live where you're more nervous because it's live, do a 1-minute one. And then before you know it, you're doing 2-hour live streams without a script. Now, if you started promoting a massive 2-hour live stream without a script when you've never done any, it's going to bomb and it's actually going to be really bad for you. Yeah. So I think maybe some imbalanced advice is that you need to get really uncomfortable. I would just suggest just keep gently pushing yourself to do new things. And there's different ways of doing this, Lisa. So one way is obviously constant iterative improvements, like when you go down the gym and just put slightly more weight on, or you can do that slight extra rep in your personal life, your business life. But another way is to get uncomfortable in completely different areas to get yourself used to getting uncomfortable. So I'll give you an example. I will intentionally ask someone a question I'm scared to ask them when it comes in my head as a test of getting uncomfortable. If I'm in the shower, at the end of every shower, I turn it on to freezing cold and I stay in there as long as possible. I'm up to 15 seconds.
Oh, God.
On freezing cold. I'll go up and talk to strangers and I'll test myself to do things in different areas of my life that get that uncomfort muscle because it's just like taking little risks and dares of yourself. And then as you get better at doing that, you get better at getting uncomfortable in the areas you really want to work on in your life, whether it's health and fitness or your business or your relationships or whatever. So I have this, I mean, it's kind of like my brand. One of the reasons people sort of associate me with the Disruptive Entrepreneur brand is I will ask questions and I will say things that people don't dare to say. Now, for me, that's good because it's testing my discomfort. Occasionally, it shouldn't have been said. But that's what happens when you take risks. So progressive uncomfort, I think, is the best tip to actually get more uncomfortable more quickly. A couple of other things. Don't take yourself too seriously. If you don't take yourself too seriously, you won't mind if you make a few mistakes. And maybe try and make things a bit more fun.
Oh, I love that. And I love the idea of taking things kind of slow, like breaking it down into chunks, right? If you're going to use the going live as the example, that's perfect. Before you would go live, you would need to research what you want to say. Maybe you want to write it down. Maybe you want to practice it a few times with other people that you feel really comfortable with, like your partner or your dog, something, just to get it out, right? Yeah, exactly. Before you would go live. And then even when you do go live, it doesn't have to be some big 1 hour long show. It can be a 1 minute, hey guys, I'm just testing this out. And that's what people love, isn't it? Like, that's what they say about video, is that the more scripted it is, and the more, fancy dancy people are making it, the less likely people will actually watch the whole thing, because that's what people want to see. They want to see the real person. So like before we went live, I warned you that my dogs that I have here are probably going to go ballistic when my doorbell rings. But we both were like, that's actually life, and that's fine. People like to actually see and hear people mess up when they're talking. You don't have to be perfect. So let yourself have more fun and be easier on yourself. Just say, hey, whatever. But say the wrong words in there. I forgot to say this or that. It doesn't really matter. That's what's actually going to make you genuine. People are going to love you for that.
Yeah, be yourself. Yeah, I know it's easy to say, isn't it? Be yourself, but it's the best thing you can do. We don't take my bloopers, my mess ups, and my cock ups out of the podcast. We leave them all in. They seem to be people's favourite bits. When people know you're comfortable being yourself despite your flaws, your failings, and your mistakes, that yes, they definitely connect with you more, but it then makes them feel more comfortable about being like that too. So you actually become a leader for others when you put yourself out there, warts and all, strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely. And if you're talking about owning a business and having a brand, right, that's what, I mean, you're not the only person that does what you do. I'm not the only person that does what I do. And we're going to tackle the things that we do differently from our competitors. So in a way, you can't really have too many competitors out there, because we're all going to handle things differently. And we want to show your uniqueness. You want to show your flaws and all, so that people will actually fall in love with the person that you are and say, that's the guy I want to be working with. That's the girl that I feel drawn to. She's got my business over somebody else. You don't want to be this cookie cutter where everything has got to be perfect and whatnot, do you?
No, and exactly. And if you're over practiced, over rehearsed, over edited, over slick, I don't really think people like that. When you go and see presentations and it's slick PowerPoints and they're slick, they're dressed slick, they act slick, you're like, is that really the real you? So in fact, you can be too rehearsed. I have a book called Start Now, Get Perfect Later. And I think life is a great way to live like that. I mean, look, if you're a pilot or a doctor, you don't start now and get perfect later. You've got to spend a lot of time and hours getting to a proficiency level. But as an entrepreneur, you can put products out before they're perfect, because you can discount them. You can test products in Facebook groups and online marketplaces very quickly or for free. You can do a podcast episode. You can get feedback on if people liked it, and you can improve the second one and the third one until the 10th one is really good. So I'm a big fan of iterative evolution and improvement. And look, starting and putting your best work out that you can, but knowing that you can constantly improve it and get better all the time. Also, if you spend ages trying to make something perfect, you don't actually know if the market wants it. So it could be wrong. So you could be spending ages on something that's not going to sell well, when in fact version 5 would have been different and better. So get versions 1, 2, 3, and 4 out as quick as you can, as long as it's ethical, legal, and it serves people and there's fair exchange. Because sometimes when people say, I'll get, rough and ready versions out, I don't mean put rubbish out there. But if it's not perfect, you just discount to create a fair exchange environment. So start now, get perfect later.
I love that, because you're right. If you've got it all polished and all perfect before it ever even launches, for example, you've just made it a perfect product for you. You haven't necessarily made a perfect product for the person who needs that service or that product, right? So getting that kind of feedback from them. I did a 30-day challenge that I launched. It runs all year, but I launched it last year, this year, January, because I thought it would be perfect to run it at New Year's. And I got the idea on like December 28th. So I was like, wow, I'm going to do this 30-day challenge because I know that it takes 21 to 66 days to instill a new habit. I had a rough idea. I wanted it to be about emotional well-being, right? So not about getting to the gym and that type of thing, but taking real time for yourself and starting to kind of go within. So it was more about meditation and just taking that little bit of time for yourself and increasing that each day, and asking little questions about kind of going within and what's driving you and those types of things. So I had the basic structure. I created two meditation videos, and an email sequence to start. And I literally just put out a couple of little advertisements, did a pin on Pinterest, put it out into my social media. I didn't pay anything to advertise for it. I just thought, well, we'll see who's interested in it. So put that out on like December 30th and had a whole bunch of people sign up for it. Was like, okay, I've got 2 videos. I have to make 28 more pieces of content. And at first I thought, oh no, this is going to be so stressful. That's all in my head. I've just made the assumption that has to be stressful. It doesn't actually have to be stressful at all. It's whatever I decide it's going to be. This is my idea. It's my baby. I'm excited about it. It's coming from my heart. I know what I'm talking about. So it's not like I've got to go out and do a bunch of research and try to talk about something I don't know anything about. So it's just about, all right, I'm just going to get feedback from the people who are willing to give me feedback. And if they're loving it, then I'm going to keep going on this trail. And if anybody comes back with feedback, oh, I'd love to see more of this or that, then that's what I'll do. I'll start altering it to make sure that it is what people want it to be, not what I need it to be, right? And it's the perfect example, I think, in this scenario.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah. Excellent. So I really want to know how you went from being so far in debt, 50K in debt, to being a multi-millionaire. Like, seriously, how did this happen?
So it happened, let me do the time frame. Yeah. So really it was start of 2006, and I would have been 27 then. And then I became a millionaire before the age of 31. So 4 years, maybe, something like that. And so what I did was, I kind of got out of working in a job. I worked in my dad's pub, and I set up on my own as an artist evenings and weekends. And that was like a hybrid step for me into running my own business. Had the safety net of working for my parents as well. But a gallery owner of mine, where I was hanging some of my work, was trying to get me to go to this local property meeting. And I said to him, well, I don't know property. I don't really like that business world. I'm an artist. I don't have any money. And it all just felt wrong and uncomfortable and scary. So I batted it off and off and off. He probably 2 years nagged me about this. And then on December the 15th, 2005, my dad had a nervous breakdown in his pub. It was our first experience with his bipolar. It was really bad in front of all of his best customers. The police were called out. They pretty much beat him up, wrestled him to the floor, tied him up with these cable ties that locked tight, put him in the back of a reinforced police van and sectioned him. And I mean, we've been struggling with that ever since then. So what's that? 14 years, give or take. But I remember being on the front lawn watching it happen, police beating him with truncheons. And I remember just being frozen and it wasn't just that moment, because life doesn't happen in a moment, but that moment leading to the weeks after I just really beat myself up about being part of the problem. You know, my dad had put me through private school, given me a good education, always supported me, paid for most things. And I was just working in his pub and messing about as an artist. I wasn't really living to my full potential. I was nowhere near my full potential. Yeah. So I kind of had a lot of introspection, and I was like, I've got to do something with my life. This is not right. It cannot go on anymore. I hate myself. I've got to make a change. And me going through that introspection, triggered by what happened with my dad, Lisa, and then this gallery owner going, you should go to this property meet, you should go to this property meet, you should go to this property meet. These two converged. Right. So I went to this property meet, and I didn't like it. I was at the back. I didn't want to speak to people. I felt like a fish out of water. Mm-hmm. But I went to the bar afterwards because he said, don't you dare go early, go and network and speak with everyone, because he knew I'd just bugger off. Bugger off is an English term.
Yep.
And the last person I met at the bar was a guy called Mark Homer, who's my current business partner. We've been in business ever since, probably 13 years of business, and 1 year we worked together in a company. And we forged a relationship, business partnership, friendship, not relationship as we're not together, not that that's good or bad or whatever, but just making that clear, I got a wife. And in the first year, we worked in a property company, selling properties, and bought 20 properties ourselves with his money and his mum's money and his stepdad's money. And then in the next year, we broke away from that company, set up our own property sourcing business, bought another 30 properties with his family's money and private investor money. So 2 years working together, we got 50 properties for ourselves and our clients. Then we set up a property training business, which went from probably one event in the first year to 850 events a year now. So it was a combination of making the decision to change my life, even though I didn't know what to do, Lisa.
Right.
With meeting a partner who was a bit further ahead of me in the game of property and jumping on for the ride, leveraging his experience and his money in our partnership. And then as we grew our property portfolio, setting up spin-off business opportunities, property training, business training, writing books, letting agency, podcasting, etc., which are all spin-off business opportunities. And yeah, we have about 85 staff in the office now, give or take, and probably another 100 outsourcers we use, because back then in 2006 it was just me and Mark. So that's the kind of the short story of the journey. I discovered that I actually loved business more than I loved art, and more than I loved sport, and more than I loved all the other things that I love. So I found like I finally had something after 26 years of looking that was something the merge of passion, profession, and vocation, vacation. So I think that helped. Yeah. Because I would do it evenings and weekends and socially, and it wouldn't feel like work. So I probably put quite a lot of hours in. Yeah.
So can you take me back a little bit to, so you've just watched this happen to your father. You've decided that you are not living up to your full potential. You've got your friend who is nagging you to go outside your comfort zone. You decide to go, which is a big step in itself. But then once you're there, you're outside your comfort zone. You know that you don't know anything about property or anything about business even. You don't even feel like you're a business person because you're more identifying as an artist. And you're feeling like you're not living up to your potential, but yet you have enough confidence in yourself and perhaps enough confidence in your now business partner to actually say yes at that opportunity to go in and start with those, what ends up being your first 20 houses or developments. So yeah. How, just take us through mentally how you're able to make that leap, because I think a lot of people, maybe not on the same scale, but I think a lot of people can relate to that, can't they? Where they're at that kind of precipice and they know that they need to make changes, but the thought of making the change itself is scary. And then not actually knowing what the change needs to be is scary. You've got all these opportunities around you. It could have been anything that you decided that you were going to do. But for some reason, you decided, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this thing I know nothing about. And I have no idea if I'm even going to like or be interested in. But yeah, let's try it. How does that happen?
So, yeah, I can talk you through looking back, which might be not exactly how it was. I can tell you how it was, though, and it wasn't confidence, actually, Lisa.
Yeah.
It was desperation.
Ah.
And that's very motivating, actually.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to be backed into the corner such that they feel desperate, but some people probably need it to actually go and, let's say you're stuck in a career for 20 years and you hate it. You're stuck in a relationship for 20 years and you hate it, and but you're not doing anything about it. Probably because you haven't got enough desperation. There's probably some levels of comfort there. Comfort with the children and the family and the finances how it is, or comfort that the job pays okay and, gives you a half decent life. But for me, I was desperate because of what happened to my dad and how I felt about myself. So it started with desperation. And that desperation merged into hunger. And then it merged into drive and motivation. So I didn't really have too much of a chance to think about the lack of confidence or think about the lack of experience, because I was on this drive of desperation, turn hunger, turn motivation, which is a really strong emotion. So it kind of burned away all the, oh, well, I've not got much experience, or, oh, well, they might judge me, or, oh, well, who am I to be here, or I don't identify as this, all those things that you said, Lisa. I just didn't really have much time to think about that, which was good. Because if I'd have thought about that a lot, I probably would have procrastinated a lot more. One thing I will say is a trait of me, and I think it's a trait of a lot of entrepreneurs, and if I could encourage you to bring this trait out in yourself, I would, is once I get into something, I can go really all in on it and deep on it and obsess about it, and, just like that, that Cal, was it Cal Newport, the book Deep Work, and
right.
I think it's Bill Gates who talks about full immersion. Well, I can get into that zone where I'm like, right, I'm in property now. Let's do it all. Let's go to every event. Let's listen to every podcast. Let's read every book. Let's follow every influencer. Let's do every course I can. All day, every day. Let's go and view properties with the estate agents, half an hour before they shut. And then find the estate agents who go and do viewings with us at 8 and 9 o'clock. And I could get obsessed. And it was the desperation that triggered it. And then the hunger and the drive that pushed me through it. And because I got so immersed in it, I didn't really have a chance to think, how good am I? What are they thinking about me? Have I got ideas above my station? Blah, blah, blah. And then by the time I sort of thought, wait a minute, what have I done? And what do they think of me? And I was a year down the line, I had 20 properties.
I love it.
Once but I've got, I'm not just saying it's really easy to try anything.
Yeah.
I'll try anything once I'm in that zone.
Yes.
But I've got to get in that zone. Otherwise, I'm a bit nervous and worried, and I look around at what everyone else thinking like everybody else. And I think that's probably true for most entrepreneurs. Yeah. Get yourself in that, whatever that tunnel vision is of your product, your service, your new business, your idea. Go full on immersion mode. Don't even give yourself a chance to think about the critic and the judgment and the small failures. Obsess for an amount of time. Now, there's a caveat there. If you're 44 and you've got 3 kids and 2 dogs, and your kids are going to private school, you've got a big mortgage, and you've got a couple of cars on a loan, don't quit that and obsess about an e-commerce business. So we're all at different stages. I was 26 when my dad's thing happened. I turned 27 a few weeks later. I was single and I had a small mortgage, so I could afford all the time.
Yes. If
you're that scenario, I said, with you're married, your kids, you've got overheads and responsibilities, obsess for 10 hours a week.
Yes.
This is the perfect spot for a quick break to talk about the planner that changed my life, Daily Greatness. These planners will absolutely blow your mind. Far from a traditional planner, these planners help you overcome your weaknesses, focus on the positive, find and follow your purpose and mission in life, set exciting goals, and follow up on those goals. We all know that our outcomes and results in life are determined by our daily habits.
These planners give you the foundation for success that you need to make you more likely to succeed at achieving your goals and reaching your potential. Seriously, they're that good. They have their original version, plus one for business, success, yoga, wellness, and parents. That's 6 versions to help in any situation. To learn more, go to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/planners. Once again, that's lifelikeyoumeanit.com/planners. This link will also be in the show notes. Are you ready to make some serious changes by living your life like you mean it? I've got just the thing for you. I've created a free 30-day challenge to help you transform your mindset and your emotional well-being. For 30 days, you'll receive a daily email packed with goodness, including a new mindset exercise for you to tackle, as well as fun things like meditations. All you need to do is to commit to this challenge by registering and then opening the emails each and every day and completing your challenges. Simple, right? If you said yes, then you're ready and you know that you deserve this. You can register for free by going to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/challenge. You can also find this link in the show notes. I love it. And I love the honesty about the desperation, because I think from the conversations that I've had with others, and even just knowing myself at different stages of my life, so many people are waiting to go and do something to change their life when they feel confident enough to do it. And they think when they look at people like you or me or anybody else, they think that we have this level of confidence that they just don't have. And that's why we're able to start a business or run a business or be successful or whatever. But that's also not the case for me either. It is the desperation of being so unhappy. I was a secondary school teacher and I hated the system. I'm here in the UK, even though I've got a Canadian accent. I've been living in the UK for 6 years now. And I just couldn't get over the system here, the educational system. And I felt like I was part of the problem, not the solution. And there's nothing that I can do as an individual teacher to change that. I have to get them ready to take a test. And I hate it. And I can't not get them ready to take the test because they have to take the test, right? That is the standard here. And so when I started looking at, I'm the only one that's responsible for my happiness. I'm the only one that can make the changes that are necessary for me to be happy. And this job, I might be happy in other places in the world with different systems, but this is where I am and this is where I'm committed to be. And so this is not the job for me, which meant I was now desperate to find something that I was going to feel like I was making a difference in the world and doing something I was passionate about. And that was my drive. So even though we were at different stages of our lives and we had different reasons causing the desperation, I can totally relate to that. And because of my past experiences, I knew that I wasn't going to allow myself to fail. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to be successful. But just like you, I knew that I can learn whatever it is I don't know. Right? So when I started blogging. And then that naturally started leading to me doing the NLP work that I do and coaching work that I do. And then that ended up leading to me writing a book. And that ended up leading me to the podcast. And all of these things, if you would have told me 3 years ago that I'd be doing, I'd be like, what? I don't even know what a podcast is. What? Why would I have done this and this and this? But I allowed it to flow in its natural progression. And every time something new came up, it was, yes, this feels right. And I know I can learn everything because I've learned how to read. I've learned how to write. I've learned how to walk. I've got all kinds of past history that tells me that I know how to learn stuff. So I will learn what it is that I need to do it. I don't just have some, unprecedented confidence level that is above and beyond everybody else. I do have a belief in my abilities to take me to a certain level. And then I've got the desperation that fuels it, right? There is no realm of possibility where I can just not do what I do because I need to feed my stepkids. I need to feed and house, all of us. I need to do all of these things, but I also have a need to live my life's purpose. I have a need to give back and help others and make a difference in this world. And teaching wasn't doing that for me. This does that for me. And you're doing a lot to give back to others as well. You've like created a whole foundation, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm trying my best. I think life is probably best served in balance, which means you're allowed to spend some of your time in commercial activities to pay your own mortgage and send your own kids to private school and live a good life. And then balance that with really good value products and services that your clients get good value from and enjoy, and it serves them. And then spending some of your time giving back to other people. So I don't really, it's funny because I talk more about, people ask me when I became a millionaire, or, people ask me about my podcast or my books or my business successes or whatever. But actually, they're probably not the things that are the best about me or the most successful about me. And I don't often tell people these, but it's kind of because you are. So I have a foundation. I probably need to tell people more about that. Which helps young and underprivileged people get a better financial education and start and scale their businesses, especially the developing world and people who don't have maybe the leg up. There's your dog.
There's the dog. Yep.
For probably 5 years, I've probably donated 2 hours of my day to helping people.
Right.
And mostly that's in the form of speaking on the phone to struggling entrepreneurs with depression, people who are starting their business and they feel like they're not getting very far or they've got major issues. Right. I mentor a lot of people who pay me a lot of money. I mastermind people who pay me a lot of money. But I do all of these for free, and they'll always be free. And I've talked to a few people out of suicide. I'm not saying I was the only factor, but I've definitely been involved in some of those conversations. And
wow.
People up off the floor and got them being more grateful for their life when maybe they're only seeing the downsides. Actually, just yesterday, someone in the property community committed suicide, which was really sad.
Oh gosh, that's terrible.
It was getting attributed to some of his training that he was doing in the property world, but in reality, I think he was a veteran. I think he had PTSD. I think it was quite complicated. Right. But I just reminded everyone. So there was a GoFundMe, a Just Giving page, going around, and I shared that and I donated some money. But also I just said, look, if anyone's struggling, email my PA. And I do probably 15, 20 of these calls a week. Anyone can book them in. My PA's email address is Katie Morgan Bell, all one word, at progressiveproperty.co.uk. And if there's a free slot, I'll take it. I don't take them for people to pitch me. It's not about, doing joint ventures, or it's just to help you if you're struggling. And I would say out of everything I do, that's probably the best thing that I do. I'm a bit scared to talk about it too much, because otherwise these calls are going to be taken out for the next 24 years, like that. And hey, look, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trained counsellor. I'm not trained like people are with suicide prevention. I'm just pretty good at solving problems. So that might be worth £5 million or £10 million in terms of what I've done. So people don't just have to have foundations by giving money or raising money. They can give back. They can do their bit. Yeah. And like I lay my head on my pillow and I think I did my bit. I did 4 of them yesterday from sort of 6:20 to 7:40, 7:50 p.m. And I got back in and I thought I did my bit. Sometimes I make a big difference to someone. Sometimes that's my question. I'm like, blimey, I don't know. Who can I put you in touch with? But that's really important, I think, to equally give as well as take.
That's incredible. So I'm interested because I do, my experience is with child abuse. So the reason I got into everything that I do is because I'm a survivor of 10 years of child abuse. And so then naturally, even though I use NLP for lots of different things related to confidence, for example, and relationships, communication, and all of that, I tend to draw people to me who have also gone through either child abuse or other traumas, right? Because that's the energy that's giving off, and that's where I want to make a huge difference in the world, right? And so I know that for whenever I'm in an interview, people always want to know how I handle those calls, because mine will be a whole 3-month coaching program that I'll put them through, right? So I'll be talking with them every week for 3 months. And so, people want to know, you've got to hear the stories. You've got to hear what they've gone through. Does that not trigger you? How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? Right. And so I want to know the same sort of thing. I know what works for me, but how do you cope with that when you're listening to other people telling you that they want to take their life?
Okay, so that's not hugely common, just so you know.
Yeah.
Most common is, I'm not making enough money, or everyone else is doing better than me, or, whatever. But that seems to be a bit more common now because I'm putting more messages out there. Like you said, the energy.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is I feel very grateful to be able to help them. And I think that I'm in a position where financially I can afford to give my time away, whereas I couldn't 12 years ago. So try and come from the place of gratitude. That's the first thing. The next thing is I try and see it as a bit of a challenge. Can I make a big difference to their life in 15 minutes? That's quite a challenge because that's not always that easy to do. And so I like to rise to the challenge. I must say that they can be quite mentally draining, but they can also be very uplifting. So you have a good one and someone's positive, you feel really uplifted. There's some pain and it can be draining. Bearing in mind, I've probably been doing interviews like this for most of the day. I've been in quite intensive meetings. I have a very varied diary. So by that time, I'm probably I've been up since 4:45 and I'm doing these calls at, 6:30 to 7:30 in the evening.
Yeah.
So for me to handle it myself, it's important. I've always had coaches, mentors. I've always done a lot of self-education, and that's vital, one. Two is to be around people where I can, obviously with confidentiality, I would never mention names, but I can discuss things. And I don't normally talk about what my clients are up to, I normally talk about how I feel about it. I've just recently actually got a therapist. I think it's really important. I know a lot of people probably would maybe be embarrassed to say that, but really my job, the job of my therapist is just to sit there while I just absolutely throw up what's in my head all over her face for an hour.
Yeah.
And then off I go. It's really, it's only just started, but it's been really good for me. And like, the more you get out, the more you realise what's behind a lot of it. So that's another element. And then just keeping your life in context, because some people say, today I had to do this, or this happened to me today. Whereas I get to say, I got to do this today. I've got to help these people. I've got to do this podcast interview. I've got to meet a new person. So it's always, because in African countries, you have to walk 20 miles to get water that could kill you if you drink it.
Yeah.
And, there's people who've had their children murdered. Yeah. And, all sorts of horrific stuff that goes on in the world all the time that in the UK, most of us are sheltered from. Yeah. So context and contextualizing is so important, because if you perceive yourself compared to an entrepreneur who's a billionaire, you're always going to feel insignificant. If you perceive your life where you earn 50 quid a day compared to someone in Africa who doesn't earn £50 in a year, you're always going to feel good and ahead of the game. So I try and contextualize things. Gratitude, not judging yourself by other people, patting yourself on the back instead of beating yourself up, being a constant student of life and business, all of those things. Essentially, all of those things I've just answered your question with, Lisa. Just keep me sane and balanced and not going into a darker place in my mind.
I love it. Thank you so much for your honesty, because that, I think, will help a lot of people. That I love the idea of contextualizing, because that's so true, right? It depends on who you're comparing yourself with. You're either the king of the world or you feel like you're nobody. Right? That's really powerful. All right, so if we could just go back, because I know I'm keeping an eye on time as well. I want to go back to the entrepreneur side of things. And I want to see if you've got any top tips for somebody who maybe is struggling in the entrepreneur realm. So maybe they've started their own business, their own company, I don't know, maybe even months ago or a year ago or so, and they're not where they want to be. What kind of tips do you have for them?
Okay, a few, and I'll cover some different areas. Number one is you've got to get admin support. Newish entrepreneurs are normally drowning in admin, and they think they've got to do it all, and they think they can't afford to outsource admin. But if every hour you're doing admin and you're not selling or marketing, actually your admin is costing you more money. So get admin support, get a VA, get a part-time PA. All the non-income generating tasks you're doing as quickly as you can, outsource them. I promise you it'll pay as long as you replace that with sales and marketing and partnerships which generate income. That's the first thing. The next thing is you want to get mentors, coaches, advisors, people who've been there and done it. They're 10 years ahead of you. They've got experience in your niche, so that what you find it hard, they've seen 100 times. That's really, really important. The next thing is you've got to spend some time working on your business as well as all the time working in your business. So the strategy, the plan, the partnerships, not just the day-to-day task list. I think that's really vital. I think you've probably got to try and get your products and services out a bit quicker. So can you launch a not quite finished version or a version 1 version? Because really, feedback from your market tells you what your products and services should be. Now, of course, you've got to create stuff you want to create. Otherwise, you won't have the passion to merge with the profession. But I don't really mind what courses I run and what subjects I talk about. Like if you said to me, Rob, can we do marketing today because all my listeners listen to marketing? I'll do that because that's what they want, and I'll bring my experience. If you said, hey Rob, can we do work-life balance today because all your listeners are work-life balance? Well, I'll teach you on that. If you want to do sales, if you want to do social media. So the point is, within the realm of what I know, I'll give the market what it wants. I'll answer your questions. So you've got to get your products and services or the surveys for what your products and services should be out quicker, leveraging free social media groups like Facebook groups and doing polls on various social media channels, and getting a bit more real time about how you launch your products and services, and getting that feedback to create a better version that the market wants. There's a lot of this about hustle and working harder. Well, if you said to me, Rob, an entrepreneur a year in, well, they're probably already working hard. So you need to also think about working smart. What partnership could you create such that maybe they have an audience or maybe they have a skill set that you need? And setting up these partnerships, that's not hard work. That's using your intellect, your human and relationship skills. That's not hustle. That is not graft. You need time to think and plan that. So, I don't really hustle that hard or work that hard. I think hard. I plan hard. I lead hard. And they're very different from the hustle and grind that most people perceive. And so I get mentally tired, not physically tired.
Right.
And I think there's, especially with a lot of the Americans and the younger sort of, millennial generation and beyond, I think there's an assumption that they don't work hard enough, they're entitled and they've got to work harder. Well, I can have £1 million or a £5 million or a £10 million idea now. So I'd hate to be working really hard on something that's worth £1,000 when I could have £1 million idea. So sometimes working harder on something isn't the best plan. It's creating a better plan and taking time to think. And then the final thing I would say is you've got to get around people. Entrepreneurship can be lonely. You can do it in your living room or your dining room or your office room or your studio or on your laptop in your living room. But you've got to get out there, go to shows, go to exhibitions, go to talks, all in your niche. Have a podcast and go and interview people in your niche. Get a wider peripheral view. Be inspired by people, but get that energy with them. Don't be alone all the time, because the depression and the darkness often comes from being alone. I mean, there's been these TV experiments people have done where they've just locked people away for a week. They're just on their own, and they just film them being on their own for a week. Right. And you see them go slowly insane.
Yeah.
I know if I was on my absolute own for a week, oh my life, no distractions or devices.
Oh my gosh.
So get around people who inspire you, who've got good energy, who've got experience, and learn from them.
I love those. Fabulous. And I know that it seemed like that was going to be my last question, but now this is going to be my last question, I swear. So I see a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn, and then you were just talking about Facebook there. Do you have a preference? I mean, I know that it depends on what type of business you have and so where your market actually is, but do you find personally that you have more success with one versus the other?
We're trying to leverage many of the social media platforms. I'm not necessarily advising that because we're just trying to figure out TikTok at the moment. We're sort of figuring out, but we're getting there with Instagram. I think Facebook's and podcasting is our best one. We're trying to figure out YouTube, and that's been around the longest probably of those. And then, like you said, LinkedIn, that's been around a long time. So my strategy is we're trying to figure them all out. I wouldn't necessarily advise that because it's quite overwhelming, but we have a full agency in our offices and we have quite a big team who can help me with that. I don't think necessarily any are better because if you're a 12 or a 15-year-old, TikTok probably is the best one. If you're maybe a 22-year-old fitness trainer, personal trainer, then Instagram is probably the best one. If you're B2B, LinkedIn is probably the best one. For us, Facebook is probably still the big one, especially Facebook groups. My biggest following, but okay, we have maybe 700,000 people that subscribe to our email database. So that's the biggest. My second biggest individual following is probably jointly Facebook and podcasts, hundreds of thousands of people, whereas my Instagram is tens of thousands. It's much smaller. The great thing about LinkedIn is they don't limit your reach. So you could have one follower and you could get 1 million views on a video or a post because LinkedIn will push it out beyond your contacts to the second stage contacts. And maybe even beyond. Whereas Facebook, other than some tests, it might only reach 3 or 5% of your whole audience. So LinkedIn is great for extending your reach if you haven't got that much of a platform. Facebook is great for groups. I mean, there's not so much leveraging pages anymore, but certainly groups and communities. So they're kind of all good for different things.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I find is they're good for different things. And if I try to run the exact same thing, obviously Instagram is just going to be the image and then the caption underneath. If I can play it up a little bit more on Facebook, you got to play it down quite a lot on Twitter because you're only allowed those few characters. And then I change it up almost completely for LinkedIn, so it has a much more kind of professional feel to it. But it's essentially the same post about the same thing, and then just kind of watch it fly, see where it goes, right? And it depends on what it is. Like sometimes you can have videos that will do tremendously well on one platform, and then the exact same video with all the same wording, and it hardly gets any hits at all on another platform. So it's really kind of a trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's good to start by just like you said, repurposing content across them all and start testing. Maybe you focus on your main platform that you know and you're comfortable with and you've got more followers on. But just test repurposing and reposting it across the platforms. And then what you'll notice when you do that on each platform, you go, oh, wait a minute. This seems to work, and you'll tweak this one, and you'll tweak this one, and you'll scroll on them, and you go, everyone seems to be doing this. And over time, you'll just get a little bit more bespoke to each platform, and you know the little hacks and ways that each one works. So stage 0 is actually getting on them. Stage 1 is getting half decent at one. Stage 2 is repurposing across them all. Stage 3 is getting good at them individually and playing an individual game on each one.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Rob. This was awesome. I just loved being on, and I so appreciate all of your amazing answers. And where can people find you? Where can my audience find you that maybe don't know of you yet?
Sure. So my podcast is called The Disruptive Entrepreneur. If you search Rob Moore, M-O-O-R-E, or Rob Moore Progressive, you'll find all my social channels. And then you can find all my books on Amazon and Audible. Just search my name, Rob Moore. I've written 14, 15 now.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And thanks everybody for watching and listening.
Take care.
Bye. Are you desperate enough? I really loved that part of our conversation with Rob being so open and honest about his desperation merging into a hunger and then into drive and motivation. I really do believe that too many entrepreneurs think it's courage, confidence, or even luck that makes successful people who they are. But as Rob says, when you're desperate enough, failure isn't an option. You're willing to fully immerse yourself, learn everything you need to learn, and do what needs to be done in order to make it work. And that includes taking a hard look at yourself and your business. Thank you to my guest today, Rob Moore, for explaining what it means to be a disruptive entrepreneur and for all his incredible tips to becoming a successful entrepreneur. You'll find the links to Rob's website and social media where you can find more information about him, his business, books, and foundation all over on the show notes. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Life Like You Mean It podcast. Now go make a plan to work on your business, not just in it.
Thanks for listening to the Life Like You Mean It podcast. Head on over to the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.lifelikeyoumeanit.com/blog. If you love the show, leave a rating and review. Share that love by spreading the word, post a link to your social media, share it with your friends, and follow or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast hosting site. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, remember to live your life on purpose by living life like you mean it.